On a Monday morning when most of the city was still sleeping, rain fell steadily on the narrow streets of Los Angeles. Every surface shone with a thin coat of water, turning old pavement into glimmering rivers and making the air taste fresh and sharp. Cars rolled by with headlights on, their wheels leaving small waves behind. In the middle of all this quiet motion, Keanu Reeves stood alone under a rusty green awning, holding a cup of coffee in his hands. He didn't mind the rain. He watched each drop hit the sidewalk and thought about how it washed everything clean. Even for just a few moments, Keanu liked mornings like this. It was easy to feel invisible, just a tired man in an old jacket, blending into the gray. When he was a child, he always wanted to be seen. But now, after all these years in the public eye, peace meant being able to move through the world without people staring. He found comfort in these small, quiet moments where he could just be himself without any weight of fame or expectation. His phone buzzed in his pocket, but he ignored it. He wanted a few more minutes to breathe before facing whatever waited for him that day. He looked up at the sky, trying to remember the last time he spoke to someone simply because he wanted to, not because they recognized his face or wanted something from him. Across the street, something unusual caught his eye. 3 boys stood, huddled beneath a sagging sign, their shadows long on the wet ground. Between them, a small girl clung to a purple backpack, her face set in a stubborn line. Keanu couldn't hear their words, but the way the girl's shoulders shook told him everything. He felt a knot twist in his chest. He remembered being young, afraid and outnumbered, and how loneliness could feel like a stone inside your heart. He watched as the tallest boy stepped forward, pointing at the girl's bag. She shook her head and took a step back. The other boys laughed, their voices sharp and mean. The world seemed to slow down for Keanu in that moment, the sounds of the city fading until all he could hear was the girl's shaky breath and the rain tapping on metal. He knew he couldn't just walk away. Something deep inside him, memory, a promise, maybe just the quiet pain of remembering his own childhood, pushed him forward. He left the safety of the awning, letting the rain soak through his hair and jacket. His feet splashed through puddles as he crossed the street. When he reached them, the boys turned, surprised to see an adult standing so close. The biggest boy tried to look tough, his chin lifted high, but Keanu saw fear flicker in his eyes. "Leave her alone," Keanu said quietly, not raising his voice, but making sure they heard every word. The boys hesitated. The leader spat on the ground, but his voice shook a little as he spoke. "Mind your own business, old man." Keanu stood his ground, his eyes steady and gentle. "This isn't right. Just let her go." There was a tense silence. The girl's knuckles were white around her backpack. Finally, one of the boys mumbled something, and they turned away, kicking at the sidewalk as they left. The rain washed their voices away. For a moment, the world seemed still. The girl looked at Keanu, tears balanced on her lower lashes. She tried to blink them away. Keanu knelt so his eyes were level with hers. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice soft. She nodded, but her shoulders trembled. "Thank you," she whispered. Keanu offered a small smile. "What's your name?" She took a breath, her voice almost lost in the rain. "Maya." "Hi Maya, I'm Keanu," he said. "Do you want me to walk with you for a bit?" She nodded again, relief clear in her eyes. Together, they started down the street. Maya clutched her bag tightly, and Keanu noticed her shoes were muddy and her coat was too thin for the weather. He didn't ask questions. He just matched her slow pace, letting her talk when she was ready. As they walked, Maya spoke in short, careful sentences. She told him about her grandpa who lived a few blocks away, a kind old man who got sick when it rained and needed medicine from the pharmacy every week. She said her grandpa always told her to be brave, even when she felt small. Sometimes other kids at school called her names, and sometimes she missed her parents. But she always tried to do what her grandpa taught her. Keep going, no matter how hard things seemed. Keanu listened closely. Each word she spoke felt heavy and important. He could feel her pain and her strength, and he remembered his own struggles growing up. He wanted to tell her that things would get better, but instead he said, "You're already brave, Maya. I can see that." Maya glanced up at him, a shy smile flickering across her lips. "My grandpa always says kindness is the most important thing in the world," Keanu nodded. "He's right." They reached a quiet street lined with small houses. The gardens were wild from the rain, flowers drooping and puddles shining beneath bushes. Maya stopped in front of a blue house with peeling paint and a crooked fence. "This is my grandpa's house," she said. Keanu looked at the house, then at Maya. "Do you want me to wait until you're inside?" Maya hesitated, then shook her head. "Would you like to come in? My grandpa always makes extra tea." Something about the offer felt special, like a door opening into another life. Keanu smiled gently. "I'd like that, thank you." They stepped onto the porch, water dripping from their clothes. Maya opened the door, and warm air wrapped around them. The house smelled like lemon and herbs, and Keanu could hear a soft humming from the next room. In the living room, an old man sat in a big chair, wrapped in a blanket. His hair was white, his eyes kind but tired. When he saw Maya, his face brightened. "There you are," he said, his voice deep and gentle. "Did you get caught in the rain?" Maya nodded and set her bag on the table. "This is Keanu, he helped me." The old man turned to look at Keanu. For a moment, his eyes searched Keanu's face, as if trying to remember something important from long ago. Keanu felt a strange jolt in his chest. The man's eyes looked familiar, like someone he once knew but hadn't seen in years. He tried to speak, but his voice caught. "It's nice to meet you, sir." Keanu finally managed. The old man smiled. "Come, sit down. There's hot tea in the pot. Maya, pour some for our guest." As Maya hurried to the kitchen, the old man leaned forward, studying Keanu's face. "You remind me of someone," he said quietly. "Someone I knew long ago, before the world changed." Keanu's hands trembled as he accepted the cup of tea. He looked into the old man's eyes, searching for the answer to a question he didn't even know how to ask. Maya sat between them, her presence filling the room with warmth and hope. Outside, the rain kept falling, but inside, something gentle and unexpected was growing, a connection that reached beyond words and years. Keanu sipped his tea, letting the warmth chase away the chill. He wondered if maybe this meeting was not a simple accident, but a sign that even the smallest acts of kindness could bring lost people together again. And as he listened to Maya and her grandpa laugh and talk, he felt something in his heart begin to heal. Inside the small blue house, the world felt warmer than anything Keanu had known in a long time. Rain tapped softly against the window, but it sounded far away, almost gentle now. The living room was filled with quiet signs of love and struggle, old photos in dusty frames, a handmade blanket draped over the couch, stacks of medicine bottles lined up on a tray. The air smelled of lemon tea and something sweet baking in the kitchen. It felt like a place where memories lingered in every corner. Maya sat curled on the faded rug, her backpack finally forgotten. She pressed her knees to her chest and watched her grandpa and Keanu with curious eyes. The old man poured steaming tea into mismatched cups and placed a plate of biscuits on the low table between them. His hands trembled a little, but his face shone with a steady, quiet strength. For a while, no one spoke. Keanu stared at the tea swirling in his cup, feeling something shift inside him. The quiet of the room settled over his shoulders like a heavy blanket, comforting and unfamiliar at the same time. He watched the way Maya's grandpa looked at him, as if searching for something just out of reach, a memory buried deep beneath years of joy and loss. "So," the old man finally said, breaking the silence, "how did you meet my Maya?" Maya looked up, her eyes shining with pride and a hint of sadness. "He helped me," she said softly. when the boys were mean outside the shop. The old man nodded, his lips pressed tight together. There's more good people in the world than bad, he said, but sometimes the bad ones shout louder. He looked at Keanu again, and his voice grew quieter. Thank you for standing up for her. Not everyone would. Keanu shook his head, his voice gentle and honest. It was nothing. I just did what I wish someone had done for me when I was a kid. Maya's grandpa studied Keanu's face, the corners of his eyes crinkling. It's never nothing. It's always something to the person you help. He leaned back in his chair, looking tired but content. My name is Eli, by the way. Most folks just call me Grandpa around here. Keanu smiled, but his heart was pounding. The name pulled at something in his mind, like a loose thread he was afraid to tug. Eli, he repeated softly, as if tasting the memory on his tongue. Maya listened to the adults, her head tilting. Grandpa, do you know Keanu from before? Eli's eyes drifted to the old photograph sitting on the mantel. It was a faded black and white picture of a young man in a military uniform, standing beside another boy with wild hair and a mischievous grin. Time had worn away the edges of the photo, but the connection between the two faces was clear. Eli took a deep breath, as if he needed to gather his courage. There was a time, he said slowly, when I knew someone with your kindness. His name was Samuel Reeves. We grew up in the same town, went to the same school. He used to say, if you see someone lost, don't just walk by, help them find their way again. Keanu's heart stuttered. Samuel Reeves was his father's name, a name that echoed through his childhood like a song he couldn't forget. He stared at Eli, searching for the boy from the photograph, the friend his father had once mentioned with laughter and longing. Samuel Reeves was my father, Keanu said quietly, his voice trembling. He passed away a long time ago. The room was silent. Eli's hands shook as he reached for the photograph, holding it gently, almost reverently. Then you must be his son, Eli whispered, tears filling his eyes. He saved my life once. When I was just a scared kid, I never got to thank him. I always hoped I would. Maya watched wide-eyed as the pieces of the story fell together. She reached for her grandpa's hand, squeezing it tight. Keanu felt the room spin around him. He remembered his father's stories about a boy named Eli, the only friend who never left him behind, the one who shared bread and hope in the darkest times. He realized now that kindness had a way of circling back, years later, like a secret thread tying strangers together. Eli wiped his eyes and looked at Keanu. Your father was the bravest person I ever knew. He taught me to stand tall, even when I was scared. I tried to teach Maya the same thing. Keanu's voice was thick with emotion. He taught me too. I just didn't always listen when I was young. For a long moment, the three of them sat quietly, the past and present woven together in the warm light of the room. Rain kept falling outside, but inside, they shared a stillness that felt like healing. Eli squeezed Maya's hand and smiled at Keanu. Maybe this is how kindness works, he said, his voice barely more than a whisper. You help one person, and someday, someone helps you. Maya rested her head on her grandpa's shoulder. Keanu felt something inside him let go, a piece of guilt, a weight he didn't know he was carrying. He looked at Eli and Maya and realized he was exactly where he needed to be. After a while, Maya brought out an old board game, and the three of them sat around the table, laughing and playing, while the storm rolled on outside. Every so often, Eli would glance at Keanu, his eyes full of gratitude and something like hope. And in that little house, with the rain and the laughter and the memory of a father's love, Keanu understood that the greatest acts of kindness were sometimes the ones that connected people across time, across pain, and across generations. The storm lasted all through the afternoon. Gray clouds crowded the sky, turning day into dusk, and the sound of rain on the windows was steady and soft. Inside the blue house, though, there was a sense of peace that grew deeper as the hours passed. Keanu, Eli, and Maya sat together at the kitchen table, moving slowly from board games to stories. From laughter to quiet moments where nothing needed to be said. Maya made tea the way her grandpa had taught her. 2 spoons of sugar for warmth, a slice of lemon for courage, and a drop of honey to remember the sweet things, even on sad days. As she poured the steaming tea into each cup, she looked at Keanu and Eli, her heart full of questions and hope. Eli watched his granddaughter with gentle pride. His face was tired, and his hands sometimes shook, but his eyes sparkled every time Maya giggled or asked a new question. When the wind howled outside, Eli pulled his old blanket tighter and began to tell stories about the past, about growing up in a small town, about his friendship with Keanu Reeves, and about the adventures they had before the world grew hard. Keanu listened closely, remembering his father's voice telling some of the same stories, though now they felt different, deeper, as if another layer had been added. He realized that every detail Eli shared was a piece of a puzzle he'd been missing all his life. He heard about how his father once gave away his only coat to a stranger in winter, how he stood up to bullies in school, and how he never stopped believing that kindness mattered, even when no one else cared. As Eli spoke, his voice grew soft. "Your father saved me when I was a boy," he said, eyes glistening. "I was hungry and scared, and he shared his lunch with me every day, even when he had nothing for himself. I never forgot that. It's why I always tried to help others too. I wanted to be like him." Keanu's throat tightened. He reached across the table and placed his hand gently on Eli's. "Thank you for sharing this," he said quietly. "I didn't know so much about my father's life. He never talked much about the hard times." Eli nodded, a sad smile on his face. "Sometimes it's easier to carry the pain yourself. But I learned that sharing stories, even the sad ones, can help you heal." Maya looked at her grandpa, her eyes big with wonder. "Grandpa, were you ever scared like me?" Eli's eyes softened. "All the time, sweetheart. I was scared of being alone, of being left behind. But your grandma used to tell me that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about choosing to do the right thing, even when you're scared." Keanu leaned back in his chair, thinking about those words. He remembered times in his own life when fear had tried to stop him, when grief and loneliness had felt too heavy to carry. He realized now that kindness and courage were choices, ones you had to make over and over, even when it hurt. As the evening stretched on, Maya asked Keanu to tell a story from his own childhood. For a moment he hesitated, feeling shy in a way he hadn't in years. Then he smiled, remembering a moment when his mother found him crying in the backyard after a boy at school called him a name he'd never forget. "My mom sat with me until I stopped crying," Keanu said softly. "She told me it's okay to be different, that what matters most is how you treat others. She said the world will try to make you hard, but you have to stay gentle." Maya listened, her small hands wrapped around her cup. "That's what Grandpa always says," she whispered. "He says gentle people are the strongest." Eli nodded. "She was a wise woman, your mother." The conversation moved gently, like the rain on the roof, drifting from memory to hope, from pain to healing. Outside, the sky finally began to clear, the storm clouds breaking apart to let the last light of day slip through the window. When the rain stopped, Maya ran to the door and pulled it open. A rainbow stretched across the sky, glowing bright against the dark clouds. She laughed, the sound carrying out into the street. Keanu and Eli joined her at the doorway, their hearts lighter for a moment. Eli placed his hand on Maya's shoulder. "See, even the worst storms can bring something beautiful." Keanu felt the truth of those words deep inside. He realized that coming to this house, meeting Maya and Eli, was no accident. It was a moment of kindness returning to him, like sunlight, breaking through after days of rain. As night fell, the three sat together, sharing a quiet meal of soup and bread. They talked about dreams and fears, about what it meant to keep going when life felt impossible. Keanu promised to visit again, and Maya hugged him tightly, as if afraid he would disappear. When Keanu finally stepped out into the cool night air, he looked back at the blue house, glowing warm and gentle against the darkness. He felt something inside him settle, a peace he hadn't known in years. He knew he would return, and that this small act of kindness had changed all their lives. The next morning, sunlight crept through the cracks in Keanu's curtains, painting soft patterns on the wooden floor. After the night at Eli and Maya's house, his dreams had been different, warmer, quieter, filled with gentle voices and laughter that echoed from another time. For the first time in months, Keanu woke up with a sense of purpose. He made his coffee slowly, savoring the rich smell as he thought about the day before. Memories of the blue house came back to him in flashes. He saw Maya's careful smile, the trembling strength in Eli's hands, the way kindness seemed to wrap around that little family like a blanket. He realized he missed them already, though they had only just entered his life. There was a heaviness in his chest, but it was not sadness, it was something new. Like hope trying to bloom after a long, cold winter. He knew he wanted to see them again. He wanted to know more about Eli's past, about Maya's dreams, about how people found the courage to keep loving each other, even when the world felt harsh and unforgiving. He wondered if they needed help with anything. He wondered if maybe, in helping them, he could find a way to heal his own wounds. After breakfast, Keanu put on his jacket and stepped out into the crisp morning. The storm had washed the city clean, and now the air smelled like wet earth and new beginnings. He walked through familiar streets, noticing things he had not seen before, the bright flowers in a neighbor's yard, the careful chalk drawings on a sidewalk, the way people smiled at each other as they passed. When he reached Eli's street, he paused at the gate, heart beating fast. He worried for a moment that he might be intruding. But then he remembered Maya's hug, the way Eli looked at him with tears of gratitude, and he found the courage to walk up the garden path. Inside, the house was filled with the gentle sounds of life. Maya was singing softly as she watered the plants on the windowsill, and Eli sat at the kitchen table, reading a letter with careful attention. The room was bright with morning light, and the scent of baking bread drifted through the air. Maya's face lit up when she saw Keanu. "You came back," she cried, running to greet him. Her joy was so pure, it made Keanu smile from deep inside. Eli stood slowly, using the table for support. "Keanu, it's good to see you, son," he said warmly. His voice was thin but strong, and his eyes held that same kindness from the night before. "Come in, have some breakfast. You look like you could use a good meal." Keanu sat down, and for a while, the three shared bread and fruit, laughing at Maya's stories and listening to Eli recall the days when he and Samuel Reeves, Keanu's father, would get into trouble and then find a way to make things right. The stories were full of mischief, mistakes, and forgiveness. Through every memory, Keanu felt his heart grow lighter, as if a little more of the past was being healed by simple truth and laughter. After breakfast, Eli's breathing grew heavy, and he had to rest in his armchair. Maya tucked a blanket around him, her small hands gentle and practiced. Keanu offered to help with chores, and together he and Maya cleaned the kitchen, watered the garden, and swept the porch. With every little task, they found themselves talking more easily, their words weaving a tapestry of trust and understanding. Maya told Keanu about her dreams of becoming a doctor, of helping other children the way people had helped her and her grandpa. She spoke about missing her parents, who lived far away and could only visit once or twice a year. Sometimes, she admitted, she felt invisible at school, like her voice didn't matter. Keanu listened closely, his own heart aching with recognition. He shared stories about his own childhood, the loneliness after his father died, the confusion of growing up in the public eye, the times he felt lost, and the people who reached out a hand to pull him back from the edge. He told Maya that sometimes being different meant you had to be stronger, but that every scar could become a lesson if you chose to learn from it. The day passed slowly, the hours stretching soft and gentle as sunlight. Eli napped, and Keanu and Maya played a quiet game of cards at the table. In the late afternoon, Eli woke and called them to his side. He looked tired, but his voice was filled with warmth. "I want to thank you, both of you," Eli said, looking from Keanu to Maya and back again. "In this house we have known sorrow, but now, for the first time in a long time, I feel hope. I see my old friend in you, Keanu, and I see a bright future in you, Maya. Sometimes, kindness is the only thing that keeps us going." Maya hugged her grandpa, her small arms careful but fierce. Keanu sat close, feeling a quiet pride rise up inside him. In that moment, he realized that healing did not mean forgetting the pain. It meant letting love fill the empty places left behind. As dusk fell, Keanu prepared to leave. He promised to return soon, and Eli pressed a gentle hand to his shoulder. "You are always welcome here," the old man said. "This is your family too, if you want it." Keanu stepped outside, the sky painted with streaks of orange and pink. He took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill his lungs, and for the first time in years he did not feel alone. As the week passed, Keanu found his thoughts returning again and again to Eli and Maya. Something inside him felt different now, as if a light had been switched on after years of darkness. He caught himself smiling for no reason, hearing Maya's laughter in his mind, or recalling the look of gratitude in Eli's eyes. He had spent so long moving through the world as if he were just passing by, never stopping, never truly belonging anywhere. Now for the first time, he wondered what it might be like to stay. On Friday, as the sun sank low over the city and the air turned golden and cool, Keanu made his way back to the Blue House. He carried a small bag of groceries and a book of old stories he thought Eli might enjoy. He felt nervous, as if visiting an old friend after too long apart, but as soon as Maya opened the door, beaming with surprise and joy, his worries faded. Maya dragged him inside, bubbling over with news about her school day and a new painting she had made. She showed him her drawing, a small house surrounded by rainbows, with 3 people standing hand in hand. Keanu recognized himself, Maya, and Eli. His throat tightened, and he blinked back a rush of unexpected tears. Eli was sitting at the table, his face pale but his eyes lively. When Keanu offered him the book, Eli's smile was quiet and full of meaning. They all sat down together, and Eli asked Keanu to read a story aloud. His voice was steady and calm, filling the room with warmth as dusk gathered outside the windows. Sometimes, Eli would pause Keanu and add his own memories to the tale, his voice full of wisdom, humor, and the bittersweet sadness of someone who had lived through both great pain and great love. After supper, as night fell, Eli grew tired and went to rest in his armchair. Maya and Keanu sat on the porch, listening to the city settle into silence. Maya rested her head on Keanu's shoulder and talked softly about her dreams, her fears, and her hope that her grandpa would feel better soon. Keanu listened to every word. He realized how deeply he cared for both of them, how much he wanted to help. The thought frightened him a little. He was used to giving in small ways, at a distance. But now, he felt the urge to be part of their lives in a real way, to share in their worries and their joys. As they talked, a police car rolled slowly down the street, its lights reflecting off the wet pavement. Maya's voice fell to a whisper. "Sometimes I worry that the world is just too big," she said. "Like there are too many things I can't fix, even if I try." Keanu squeezed her hand gently. "You don't have to fix everything," he said. "Just being kind is enough. Sometimes that's how life gives back to us when we least expect it." Maya smiled, the sadness in her eyes softening. "Do you really think so?" "I know so," Keanu replied. "Your grandpa and my father, they believed it too." Inside, Eli called for Maya. She hurried in, and Keanu followed. Eli looked up at them, his voice a little weaker but still full of life. "Keanu, there's something I want you to have," he said. He reached for a small wooden box on the table. His hands shook as he opened it, revealing a faded photograph and an old silver key. He handed them to Keanu. "This was your father's," Eli said. "He gave it to me when we were boys. He said if I ever found someone who reminded me of him, someone with the same kindness in their heart, I should pass it on." Heavy, its metal cool in his palm. He looked up, his eyes shining. "Thank you," he said softly. Unable to find words big enough for the feeling inside him, Eli smiled, tears sparkling in his eyes. "Thank you, Keanu, for bringing hope back into this house. You have a family here, always." That night, Keanu stayed until the stars came out. He and Maya played one last game, and Eli told them a story from long ago, his voice a thread connecting the past to the present. As Keanu left for home, he knew that life had changed him forever, that kindness had come full circle, and that sometimes the world really did give back. In the most unexpected ways, days turned into weeks, and the small blue house became a place where stories were shared, memories healed, and new hopes were born. Keanu found himself visiting more often, his footsteps growing familiar on the cracked sidewalk, his laughter joining Maya's and Eli's like a soft melody that filled the quiet neighborhood. One afternoon, the sun shone bright, casting golden light through the kitchen window. Eli sat at the table, his face peaceful and calm. Maya was painting a picture, her brush strokes gentle but confident. Keanu watched them both, feeling the deep warmth of belonging he had never known he needed. But life, as it often does, was not without its challenges. Eli's health had been fragile, and lately, there were moments when he grew weak and tired faster than before. Keanu saw the worry in Maya's eyes, the way she held her grandpa's hand tighter, whispering words of comfort. One evening, as the sky darkened and the first stars began to appear, Eli called Keanu to his side. His voice was softer now, but still full of wisdom. "Keanu," he said, "your father and I shared a promise that kindness would never end, that it would pass from one heart to another, across time and distance. I see that promise in you." Keanu felt a lump rise in his throat. "Eli, you've given me more than I can say. Your friendship with my father, your kindness to Maya, it has changed my life." Eli smiled, reaching out to squeeze Keanu's hand. "Then keep it going. Be the light for someone else when their days grow dark." That night, as Keanu left the house, he looked back once more. The blue house stood quietly under the stars, a beacon of hope in a world that sometimes forgot how to be gentle. Maya walked him to the gate, her small hand in his. "Thank you," she said simply, "for everything." Keanu knelt down and looked into her eyes. "Thank you for reminding me what kindness really means." As he walked away, Keanu knew this was not the end of their story. It was just the beginning, because kindness, once given, never truly leaves. It lives on in the hearts it touches, growing stronger with every act, every word, every brave choice to care. And so the circle continues.